What up? This is Rama Screen, and I'm here talking with the writer-director of the new movie Black Bear, Lawrence Michael Levine. How are you, Larry?
I'm good. I'm good. Yourself?
Good. Thank you for taking the time. Black Bear has got to be one of the most fascinating movies I've ever seen, but it's also a bit mind-boggling. It takes a bit of time for me to wrap my head around it, you know?
hmm
What is your inspiration for creating this awesome film, and how did you get the idea to practically deconstruct the plot halfway through?
I don't know. Inspiration's a tricky thing to describe. I know that I had been working in Hollywood as a screenwriter on more commercial, conventional projects, and I've been doing that for about five years or so. And I was pretty tired of the same three act structure, the same kind of mentality, the same kind of staid Hollywood mentality about what people want to see. And I knew that I wanted to break out and do something more adventurous, more like the films that I grew up loving, more like the films that inspired me to be a filmmaker. So I knew I wanted to do something like that. And I knew I wanted to work with Aubrey. And I also knew that I had to keep things simple because when you do crazy stuff, nobody wants to give you money to do it. So you have to keep costs down. So I came up with this idea to tell a story in two parts. Um, I don't know exactly what inspired it, but I wanted to tell a story in two parts, two love triangles, one in which Aubrey's character was the home wrecker and another in which her home was wrecked. And so with that kind of simple conceit, my mind started to turn. And I also had a dream one night that was very much like the first part of the film. So that dream, the vibe of it kind of got me going, but I didn't have a plan in advance. Every day when I went to my office to write, I was surprising myself. And where these decisions came from was very intuitive. And it wasn't necessarily intellectual um, as much as it was emotional and intuitive.
What does this film want to say about indie filmmaking? I've never been on a film set. I would love to visit a film set someday. But can it really get that contentious between filmmakers and actors as they're filming?
Yes, it can. That's the simple answer. It doesn't need to, and it usually doesn't,
Hmm.
and it probably shouldn't. But I wasn't really thinking about indie film at all. I was thinking about film in general, and
Hmm.
I was thinking about life and what I wanted to say about life and art. So it wasn't really, I didn't want to make a particular statement about indie film, but I did want to make a movie that was hard to boil down to some sort of simple meaning. I think a lot of movies spoon feed their audience simple truths that they can take away and get some form of comfort for. But I I I also think that films can challenge people, and I think the reality is that life is very difficult to understand. It's hard to find meaning, and it's hard to make sense of. Particularly, our reality right now is totally bonkers. So I think my movie reflects that.
Where did you film this? Because logistically, that cabin and that lake, I was watching it, and kudos to the actors, man. It looks freezing cold, and they even swim in it. I was like, can you talk a bit about that?
We shot in the summer, and
Oh, summer.
yeah,
Okay.
the weather was nice,
Hmm.
and the lake was relatively warm. It's called Long Lake, and it's long and shallow,
Hmm.
and because it's shallow, it's warm. And yeah, when the night that we did most of the swimming stuff, the cast wasn't particularly happy, but I swam in that lake every day before we started shooting, and every morning when we finished, really, because we shot overnights. We shot basically 3 weeks of overnights. So I enjoyed the lake. Yeah, no, the weather was good.
I'm a huge fan of Aubrey Plaza, but she's mostly known for her comedic roles. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, she started out as a comedian herself. In this film, Black Bear, she flexes her dramatic muscles or dramatic chops, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
What is it about Aubrey that made you decide she would be the perfect fit for the role of Allison?
Well, like I said, I mean, the movie is hard to pin down, is kind of tricky. It's tough to know what's going on, what's real and what's fake. And I think that's true of Aubrey. She's very mysterious and kind of hard to comprehend.
All right. And lastly, because this is such an original film, it's originality is hard to come by these days. People always say like, "Oh, that movie is like The Sandlot meets Mission Impossible." That's they describe originality these days. But this is really true original. What is your advice to aspiring filmmakers that want to come up with their own original thing as well?
Yeah, be prepared to suffer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, it's not easy to carve out your own independent vision and niche in a world where you have to make a living. And most of the industry is very commercially minded. And if you want to say something unique, um, you may have to struggle. It took me a long time to make this film, and you don't really make any money off making movies like this. In fact, I had to put some of my own money into this film, but that's another story. So yeah, don't expect to make money. Expect to suffer. You better love art, and you better care about movies. And I've managed to carve out a marketable skill, which is writing, and I can write in more conventional ways. But but this kind of film is really not done for money.
Larry, thank you for talking to me, and congratulations, sir.
Thanks a million, Rama. Appreciate it.